Welcome to the Accounting Arc Podcast, where analysis, reaction, and comedy collide to tackle the big topics from the world of accounting and beyond. Join our trio of transformation agents as they discuss the hottest topics in and out of the profession, from breaking down industry trends, to reacting to everyday events, to uncovering the hidden humor in numbers. With wisdom, insight, and a dash of levity, they're proving that accounting isn't just about the numbers. It's about life. Because after all, accounting is in everything. The Accounting Arc Podcast starts now.
Welcome back to another episode of ARC. Today, we're talking about the state of technology companies in our industry, a little bit on how fundraising happens for innovation and who the big players are. So, Byron, when you think of accounting technology, who are the biggest players in our industry?
I would say there's probably the big three. You got Wolters Kluwer, or CCH, as many people know them, Thomson Reuters, and Intuit, I would say, are probably the three gorillas in the room.
I would agree with that. And for the edification of our viewers and listeners, the software that these three produce traditionally has been research software, tax compliance software, audit compliance software, and in the case of Intuit, accounting general ledger software. Am I missing any of the big things they do? They do a lot of book publishing too.
Yeah, a lot of knowledge, resources, and some of the classic, document management, audit engagement management type stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And so they've sold enterprise grade software for a very long time, and have been standing players in the industry with some innovations happening, right? Like they acquire smaller companies every so often. And Intuit, I would say, is probably the biggest in those three that is investing a lot into their R&D team and building out new tech-enabled features on a regular basis. But that is just a feeling I have with no actual data points. So caveat there. What's your feeling on that side?
It's a mix. You also have to weigh in the fact that both CCH and Thomson, they play in a much larger playground, as far as they're heavy in the legal space as well. And their hands are in a lot of things. So then when you boil it down to the accounting profession related technology and innovation, I would say, Thomson has been very much historically kind of like find what's working in the profession, acquire it and rebrand it and bring it into their suite. And then CCH, they've had a couple acquisitions over the years, but they have really built a lot of what they have done in the last, decade, 2 decades, I would say.
Which brings me to the point of 2 decades is a very long time for a tech company. So they've been
Yes,
around
it
for a
does.
very long time. Worth mentioning and talking about understanding that these are the players that are selling to the largest accounting firms in the world, and in our country. And, also have a big chunk of the mid-market firms and a bunch of local firms as well. Now, tech innovation, which is something I know Byron and I both hold dear to our hearts. How does that work in our space? Like, what does that look like?
Oh man, well, especially I would say in the last 5 years, tech innovation has been wild. Just with respect to, I think venture capital has really lit a flame of a lot of people with ideas that they think are going to change the landscape. And, they go out and they're able to raise some funds and get a bunch of engineers and build it. So, the tech innovation space, I would say in the last 5 years, due to SaaS and venture capital, has been just very turbulent, with people popping in, solutions disappearing,
Mhm.
and I without being too negative Nancy here, I would say, there's been a lot of technology that has not been built to be sustainable. It's been built for a moment in time to make a buck.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with you. And so, I start to categorize like the innovative tech or the tech startups in our space with looking back like 20 years. And that's when you had companies like, well, not quite 20 years for them, but Zero, FreshBooks, like
Sure.
the competitors from a cloud accounting perspective. So these were tools built on the cloud for the cloud, right? To be accessed and maintained remotely. Whereas historically, the big players had built desktop or server-based softwares that were sold and implemented, and they have converted many of them to being either hosted, which I think is really weird, or
Yep.
actual online cloud-based programs, and they've had to re-platform. So let's backtrack to what does it look like if you have a technology idea in accounting? So you have an idea, you're a technical co-founder, so you know how to program, you know what the technology needs to look like, or maybe you are an accountant at heart that's just kind of a hacker, kind of like Byron or I, that tries to hack together a solution. You get a good idea, a good founding team. Generally, you need a business person and somebody that can program
Yep.
on your team, and then from there you can decide what your founding team looks like. Those two being the two requirements, right? Then you fundraise. So you go, okay, angel investors, I have this amazing idea. And angel investors in our industry can be specific to accounting or fintech, or they can just be in your local area, right? You can go present at
Yep.
different angel investment groups and see if you can get generally between $10,000 and $100,000 from them up front. Or you don't have access to that. So you say, hey, rich uncle, do you have $10,000 for me to build this experiment and see if I can get an MVP, minimum viable product, off the ground so that I can go raise for money, venture capital. And, I think that happens more often where you start with a friends and family round instead of an angel investment round. And then you build something that can work and people start seeing the value. So you're solving problems in the industry. Now, once you're actually solving a problem and you have a little bit of idea of what it's going to look like, how it's going to function, who you're going to target with that, what the available market is, and your business plan, you go out to venture capitalists. And I am truncating this process hugely for interest of time and energy. And then you do a Series A and you get actual investors into the
Yep.
company. And then you're forced into what we like to call the fundraising cycle, which means that post investment, you always have a higher valuation. That valuation continues, and then the investors want to see an even higher valuation. So you go to a Series B or a Series C, depending on how big you get. And if you make it past Series B, you are better than 90% of the applications that ever enter our marketplace. And we see you at accounting conferences in the expo hall saying, I'm going to solve this problem. Okay, so that was a lot of thoughts. Anything you want to interject before I run out of breath?
Before you run out of breath, I mean that was a excellent, I would say 90-second like compression of that life cycle. But I want to point out something that you highlighted. You said, this investment cycle of, constantly having to feed the monster, because that is exactly right. What happens is, you raise that round and the investors from the earlier round want to see returns on their money. So you have to keep going out and fundraising to get that inflated value, all the while supposedly building a software company that is solving problems.
Yeah, exactly. And so it creates a dichotomy in that you have to have a direction and a very healthy organization to continue fundraising. But to maintain that, you have to focus on it. But to fundraise, you have to focus on that. And it becomes almost a full-time job during fundraising cycles. And so you are stuck as a founder or a CEO in a very difficult spot. to do all of this well. Which brings us to Byron's point about technology built for 1 second versus scalability. It is easy to build a program to solve a problem. It is not easy to build a program that you can build on top of and create additional feature sets and expand and scale, and not even scale with just the technology, but scale with the amount of use that the program will have. And so there are two very distinct ways that things are built. And historically, in all tech startups, not just accounting tech startups, the advice in most recent history has been build an MVP, minimum viable product, however you can, get it to market, get paying customers, because the customer list is almost more important than the actual product, which leads to every single company having to re-platform and rebuild their core code base, which is extraordinarily expensive. It doesn't lead to quick revenue growth, and it requires a lot of capital. So like you're stuck in this fundraising cycle, and also you're telling investors, oh, well, our technology was actually not that good. So now we're spending all this money on re-platforming. And that is every company goes through it. And when they go through it is different, right? Like I know some companies limp along on their core code base for a long time. Other companies decide to do it relatively quick. I know, Intuit re-platformed QuickBooks Online, Xero re-platformed all of Xero. So it's not just the small companies doing this, it's the large ones too. It's just at what point do they have to do it? And it creates like either companies are going to make it. And that's almost like a test of like, if you're talking to a vendor, you can say, hey, like, what are you thinking about from a platform perspective? How far down the line have you gotten? Like, and they can be like, oh, we just re-platformed last year. We have all these feature sets coming out because we have the ability to scale. And more often than not, this company is going to make it at least to the next level. Right. If you're talking to a company and they haven't had feature releases in a long time and they're struggling with like actually performing the service that they're selling as technology, you might ask them, hey, like, have you re-platformed, or how were you built to begin with? Like, what's the issue with all these releases, or why have there been none? Like, what's going on internally, and kind of get to the meat and bones of it. And I bring that up to say, like, it is almost like our version of fast fashion. Right? Like you can build an app to solve a problem, but it's going to get a hole in it and you're going to have to throw it away and ultimately buy the more expensive thing. Or you can build the more expensive thing up front, but of course you need capital for that, which nobody has when they start a company.
I think in accounting that we too often forget that we have to put our own mask on first, like in an airplane, right? Put our own mask on first before we help others. And our whole thing is, oh, there's clients, I got to help the clients, I got to do all this stuff. And we're giving so much of ourselves that we're not taking that time to take care of ourselves. It's part of the reason why at the center, we created this whole personal resilience program, which is really, for you to be that strong rock and foundation for the clients, you need to be solid yourself first. So it really is a matter of taking care of ourselves, and then we can take care of others. In fact, we can take care of more others, the stronger that we are as a foundation. And that's also why a lot of what we do is based in teams, because then even if you're faltering, some of the teammates can jump in to cover or to allow you the time to rest so that you can rest, but we're still holding everybody up. So that's why I think working together in a team is so important, as well as taking care of yourself.
Yeah, when I think about kind of that evolution, I almost think about boats, like those platforms being boats, because when you have a smaller boat, you can't fit as many things on it, and it has limited scale at which it can grow, but it can also zip really fast and make quick turns and pivot. And, it's really easy to innovate on a smaller size system. And then each time you platform, you're going to a larger and a larger boat because you're adding more feature functionality and ability to support all of the features and all of the users and all of the clients. But eventually you end up with a cruise ship that doesn't turn very fast. And if it does turn very fast, everybody in the kitchen slides to the left, and they make a lot of broken things. So these moments of platforming and scaling and feature and functionality, I mean, it is a feature, I would say, of building software companies. It's not something that is necessarily a what's the word I'm looking for? It's not a sign of somebody doing it wrong. It's just the way that it has to be done based on the ability to create these solutions.
Yeah, and to have the money to do it, right? And that's
That's
the
right.
hardest part is we are at a point where tech development is getting much easier and much more accessible. And also, that means that there will be more competition. That'll also mean that larger companies like the Big Four can just build their own internal solutions and they won't have to buy from external vendors, which reduces the total addressable market for our industry. That being said, our industry has a huge total addressable market. Like in the grand scheme of things,
Yep.
everybody needs accountants. So there's accounting functions in every business. There's, requirements for tax returns for everything. And there's huge firms, lots of small firms. And if, you're looking at industries to solve problems for, we have solvable problems because our stuff is relatively rules based and financial transaction based. So there's data and structured data at that. So when people are entering different industries or thoughts about building technology, accounting comes to mind often and frequently because we have such a big market and we have solvable problems. And so you end up with a lot of competition in our space, which I think is great. Like it's really interesting to see the evolution of tech and go to those expo halls and see who makes it and who doesn't and why. Although I have a bad habit of betting on the underdog. So I tend to, for my firm, buy the software of like the small, scrappy startups that are doing things in like a unique way that are really awesome and the functionality is amazing. And then they just don't make it because there's somebody that's doing it at a bigger, broader scale. So,
Well, and I mean, part of that problem is, and this is a harsh reality that I really despise, but it's the success of these solutions is rarely based on having a good product. It's usually based on having a good sales and marketing arm that's able to get that mediocre product into the most hands.
yeah.
And it's a different mechanism that needs to happen. And I feel the same way. Like I get drawn in, sucked into these solutions where it's like it's cool. They get it, they see it, they understand it, and they're technicians. But when it comes to building a business and building a brand, unfortunately, sales and marketing is a bigger and more important initiative than those technicians who just love and are passionate about the solution sometimes have.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I think that's a pretty good understanding of like the big players, how smaller players enter our space, what that looks like, and the challenges that they have to deal with on a regular basis. What do you think is going to happen next? Like, what's the next big tech change in the industry?
Oh man, I mean, adding to the Wild West that we already described is obviously, the gold rush of the 2025 or 2023 maybe AI gold rush that is happening, right? So now, not only do we already have that wave of just innovation from the venture capital and cloud-based software, but now we have AI that is adding fuel to this market. So I mean, I think what's going to happen is there is going to be an even larger explosion of solutions that are going to start showing up. And you mentioned earlier, and Donnie and I actually recorded an episode about the vibe coding and this kind of like idea of personal software, which is what I'm super excited about because I mean, frankly, if I was to build my own firm right now, I would seriously consider maybe raising a little bit of that money and just building as much of the software in-house as I could. So I think, small firms and personal software is probably going to become really, really popular in the next couple of years.
Yeah. And then you can build it in a small boat or a fast fashion way that it doesn't have to scale, right? Because it's built for you
That's
to
right.
do what you need. And I do think like a lot of those vibe coding things in our industry are happening regarding like workflows that you can automate, administrative functions in a firm,
Oh, yeah.
and a lot of the base level manual labor that happens just to keep things going, right? But I think that there's going to be a whole next level of actual accounting tech that comes out of firms. And, I think that my personal prediction and what I've been hopefully trying to manifest is a way to build tech companies that are benefiting the whole industry or like all of the small firms that want to participate in that. Because
Sure.
as we know, being a small firm, like it's hard enough to maintain all of the conversations you have to have with clients on a regular basis, never mind like go learn how to vibe code, right? Like,
Yep.
okay. So then you're talking about like, okay, well, I have to hire somebody to do this because, I've been a CPA for 10 years or so, and I don't know how to do that. And I don't want to be like beat out so quickly because I have a ton of knowledge that can really
Right.
help companies, right? And it does take a while to build that knowledge base and get that experience to be able to be a truly good advisor, despite having AI help you with base level ideas. Like you still have to review it. It still hallucinates
Yep.
sometimes. It still has like weird stuff in it, which is being shown all over the place in interesting use cases. Like if you want to
Yep.
go down a rabbit hole on the internet, like start Googling what weird stuff AI has done today. And I do that on a regular basis. And I'm just like,
Of
oh,
course.
that's an interesting pitfall, right? So, anyways, I bring that up to say, like, the knowledge base that accountants have that have been in the industry for more than a year or two is invaluable. And also
Yeah.
the ability to build these AI backed innovations and tools will
Yep.
be incredible from the generation coming out. So I think if we can just get like the newest generation of graduates in accounting to like have respect for us millennials and vice versa, and even Gen X, I won't exclude you, Byron.
Thank you. Thank you.
Then like the combination of powers will be unstoppable.
I think that's an exciting vision, and I hope you can manifest that because, I think, one of the other tensions that has historically been a challenge, especially for smaller firms that are getting established and growing, is most of this software is being built and sold to larger organizations because of the revenue numbers and
Enterprise.
right?
Yeah.
Absolutely, right? And so these smaller organizations have been somewhat ignored and underserved. And the reality is from one group to the next, a lot of the same challenges and issues exist. So this idea of, aggregating these firms to enable some software purpose built is an exciting vision. I love that.
Yeah. And I think, if we can create the best future for our industry, it requires the people in our industry to like participate in what that looks like
Yep.
from a technology perspective and participate more than just advisory boards or,
That's
like
right.
the input on
Councils.
right? Like all of that is wonderful and great. And it's not enough of a participation to make the biggest difference, because it's not like you don't have a stake in it at the end of the day. It's just you're getting either, compensated for your opinion, or a little bit of free software, or a free trip to wherever, right? Which is fine. But ultimately, our industry needs to participate in a more meaningful way.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think that's a fantastic way to wrap up this conversation and see if we all can't manifest together that vision that you have.
Oh, that was the impetus of this conversation, as we were talking about what's happening next. And I said, why don't we do an episode on what has happened to date? And like think about the history for a second. And I think it's exciting, and we have this huge horizon in front of us, and the rate of tech change is just increasing, and the rate of tech adoption is not. So, I think that in and of itself will change, and I think people's thoughts around how this works will only improve, and will ultimately end up in a better place. So, you want to wrap us up?
Absolutely. So, I think we did a good job of looking in that rearview mirror, covering kind of the history of the software and where we've been, and then painting a little bit of a vision out the windshield of where we want to go. So, thank you all for joining us. If you have ideas or visions of where you think it might go, please drop them in the comments. We love to hear from you. And with that, we'll be back again soon with another episode of ARC.
Awesome. Thanks, Byron.
See you.
The Center for Accounting Transformation provides business professionals with a network for utilizing innovations that are ready for adoption, the training and resources necessary to apply those innovations, and an opportunity to engage the talent and community needed to further the pursuit of innovative accounting practices that drive responsible and mindful business performance. Find out more at our website, www.improvetheworld.net. And if you're interested in sharing your own transformation stories, please contact us there.